morning, it's Lou Collins. Here we are in an underground bunker somewhere undisclosed in Brixham.
Yeah, as sound out as they're having renovations, so we've decided to retreat to the back layer.
Yeah, and we're down here recording underground.
Under 3,000 miles of concrete.
Yeah. We're going to I want to jump straight in and play this clip quickly for you. And I'm sure it's going to delight many, many listeners, especially those in the US. So for everybody in the US, here's your president.
To Her Majesty the Queen, on her Diamond Jubilee, to our dear friends David and Samantha, and to the great purpose and design of our alliance. May we remain, now and always, its faithful servants. Cheers, everyone.
Well, thank you for your allegiance, Mr. Obama man. My drains need cleaning, so once you're done fluffing the Queen, you can get down to Brixham and clean the guttering out, because it's full of leaves.
It is, but he does. He is apparently the Queen is his handler.
Really,
he is the Queen's official puppet.
Right.
Apparently, but people in America must be absolutely delighted to know that Mr. Obama is swearing allegiance to the Queen, and he's already very grateful.
He's already said that they don't need Congress anymore, and they'll just go to war on the whim of the UN. So he's already committed treason and sedition. So I mean, you know, what's the? It's just each week. Americans keep taking it though, so I guess they're stepping up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at that video, we saw it here in the studio on video, the way that they've done the White House up, it's got blokes with trumpets and stuff. It looks, and there was a story last year about Michelle Obama. She's got something like 100 personal sort of PAs and assistants that follow around. So it is basically like a little mini royalty.
Yeah, of course it is.
And they haven't even got, I mean, America was sort of set up with it.
Invading it, little countries for no reason. All in the name
They just
of...
need a fox hunt now,
well,
don't they? Well, I probably eventually they won't have fox hunts, they'll just have people hunts where
of course.
They'll be like the Running Man, and there'll be a lot of...
who's doing any healthy, and anyone who wants to live healthily, they'll
be running naked through a forest with a load of rich toffs and corporate slime balls on horse shooting at them.
Listen, the show today, we're going to be talking natural health. He is fascinating. I saw him talking at the Natural Health Federation talk in Brick Lane a couple of weeks ago. And it was quite bizarre, actually, because I kept saying, I've got to ask Ian Crane, that is, who, if I can get this guy on the show. He's so interesting. And then I was sitting down in Plymouth last week with Brian Garish at the UK column, and my phone rang, and there was a voice over the phone and said, "Hi, I've been told I need to come on your show." And it was Clive.
Wow.
So I don't know who pointed him in my direction, but whoever you are, thank you. We're going to get him on now over Skype, and he's going to be discussing natural health, what's going into our water. His website is ancientpurity.com.
Get a pen and paper ready.
Yeah,
lots of information. This information health overload to the brain.
Yes, thanks for that, James.
And you'll need supplements to keep your brain in one piece from the awesomeness.
This is true. So, yeah, get your piece of papers. Loads of notes to be taken. Right, I'm going to get Clive De Carle on the phone now from Ancient Purity. Good morning, Clive.
Good morning. How are you, Lou?
We're very well. I've got James here with me.
Hey, Clive. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
Really, I just want to start by asking a bit about your background and how you got into the natural health and what inspired you to start Ancient Purity.
Well, when I was at school, I did seriously consider becoming a doctor, but it seemed not my thing after I talked to a few doctors. And in my early 20s, I studied various types of hands-off healing. But although people said they could feel the results, I never felt confident in myself to go and do it. So I went into business, and I worked for about 15 years in the field of ophthalmic optics. And I used to sort of go into various surgeons and neurosurgeons and show them new microscope techniques and stuff like that. And contact lenses I was also interested in. And then suddenly I got incredibly ill from being healthy. I ended up in hospital. And what had happened was, over a remarkably short period of time, I got arthritis to such a degree that one morning my wife brought me a mug of tea and I couldn't lift it. And I really realized I really was in trouble. Right. And 3 weeks in hospital, they figured out that among the other things that were wrong with me, I'd become type 1 diabetic. And when they put me on insulin, then suddenly I was able to function again, even though the arthritis they couldn't do anything about. And they sort of really were saying I'd probably have to live with it. But I met, at that point, Patrick Holford. And he said to me, well, you're low on minerals and vitamins and you haven't been eating well enough. And sure enough, he was right. And some months later, the arthritis just disappeared. You know, I looked like I was 90 at one point, you know, lumpy and bumpy and horrible. Disappeared completely. And I realized, well, okay, if one can do that, completely get better, what other problems can one get over? And very shortly after that, my father's best friend explained to me that his cancer had returned for the second time, and he'd had, I think, one kidney removed, and it was all pretty ghastly second time round. You know, they hadn't found the cause of it the first time. They'd just treated it. And anyway, he told me the story that he was still feeling pretty fit and well, and he was on his way to the doctor's appointment when he got mugged. And thinking he'd got nothing left to lose, he attacked them back, and they all ran away, and he got to keep his wallet. He arrived at the doctor's office, and the doctor said, well, I don't know what you've been doing, but there is no cancer. It's not there. Wow. And what actually he'd been doing was he'd been taking very high doses of vitamin C. He phoned up Linus Pauling, one of the most famous people who researched vitamin C, and Linus Pauling said, build up slowly to 25 grams of vitamin C a day, which he did. And he didn't do anything else, didn't change his diet, didn't do much else. And at that point, many people were recovering from that sort of dose of vitamin C. Now, because there are more toxins in the environment and more things are against us, we have to do more than just 25 grams of vitamin C. But it opened my eyes, and he lived for another 25 years. And when he finally did die, it was for something else entirely. And so about 12 years ago, I started researching, and that has, the last 5 years particularly, I've been much more focused in where I've been researching, and I've been looking at the survivors of disease, what did they do right, looking at longevity around the world, and looking, well, why do some people live an awful lot longer than others? Why is it? And that led me to realize a number of things, that the research that I was doing was actually, I was researching other people's research. I started looking at older material from the 1930s. For instance, it seems that the longest lived people ever were the Hunza, in the Hunza Valley, which is sort of Afghanistan, Pakistan sort of area, quite high. And the Raj was there, so the English documented everything, you know, what they ate, what they did, everything. And it was very, very clear back in the 30s that the Hunza, the most long-lived people in the world, were doing a lot of things right. Some of them were living to 150, all documented. There were many men giving fathering children when they were aged over 100, people still working the fields at 120. Now, the Hunza are still there today, and the traditional diet has to some degree been displaced by the modern diet, but still the secrets of why they lived so long are still very plain. They were drinking pure glacial meltwater, which really did help, and it's unfortunate that we can't all get pure glacial meltwater.
No, we just seem to get fluoridated water.
Yes, or chlorinated.
Yeah.
And that's another whole story, the whole chlorine story and what it's actually doing to us. You know, I don't know whether many people are aware, but from a molecular point of view, 99% of the molecules in our body are water, and they're very, very small. And so you could say that we are 99% water if you want to look at it from at a molecular level. So let's say somebody's dehydrated. Well, you're not 100% you, are you, if you're dehydrated? If the brain's dehydrated, you'll find you won't be able to think straight.
Yeah.
If the blood's dehydrated, is the heart perhaps now potentially pumping around tomato soup rather than nice thin blood. The water is pretty important, and the quality of it is immensely important. And so I started looking at the Hunza water, as have many people, and looking at the minerals that are in it, why it's so pure, and why it has such health-giving properties. So I'd certainly say that one of the key elements of health does appear to be good quality water. So anybody who's still drinking it from the tap, unless they know the source is pure and there's no chlorine involved, I wouldn't be drinking that. I'd be filtering it at the very least.
So if I swim a lot, so with, you know, they put so much rubbish into the pool and the chlorine. When I get out the pool, my eyes are stinging, they're sore. My children also really enjoy swimming. Is there anything we can do to kind of counteract the amount of chlorine that's, you know, we're soaking up into our skin?
Yeah, there are 4 halogens, you know, halides: bromine, iodine, chlorine, and fluoride. You know, in the First World War, they used chlorine as the gas to kill everybody. They put bromine in the tea to make the soldiers less interested in sex and more compliant to go over the top. In the Second World War, they gave fluoride to the people in the concentration camps. And recently, they've been using chlorine on the rest of the population. And all those have a smaller molecular size than the iodine. And the iodine's the good guy of the 4. And the iodine, as you know, is a big component of the thyroid. Let me give you an idea how important iodine is. If in pregnancy, if the mother is short on iodine, the child can be born with a low IQ. If they are really low on iodine, it's a condition called cretinism. Right. You know, the child is considered a cretin, as they say.
Yeah.
Iodine is in every cell of the body. It's vital for the immune system, and it's the thing that is displaced when you swim or you take in too much chlorine. Right. So the chlorine will take the place where the iodine should be. So if you're going to come in contact with chlorine, it would be a very good idea to make sure you've ingested a sufficient quantity of iodine before you go swimming and afterwards, so that you can get your balance back. You know, in recent decades, there's been a huge increase in the number of people with thyroid issues. Yeah. You know, and commonly people will say, "Oh, I'm so tired in the morning." Right, the chlorine. Sorry, I lost my thread there.
So is the sources of course, of a lot of these vitamins and minerals are really important. A lot of people take
sea kelp.
Well, a lot of people take vitamins and minerals from the corner store or from this, you know, local Boots or whatever.
And they've only got a very small percentage.
It's got a small percentage, and it's usually artificial. And the more I've looked into this, the actual source of what you're taking is the utmost importance. Because, am I right in, you know, like even with iodine, is iodine, or are there different levels?
There are different versions of iodine, and I would say that probably the one that's most commonly used, because it comes out at the right price and it has the right ingredients, is Lugol's iodine.
Right.
There are other versions like Nascent and so on, but Lugol's is very, very inexpensive, and it's important to it's one of the really important ones to understand. What you were saying about the source of the vitamins and minerals is crucial, and it's really simple to judge how to judge a good mineral, for example, and vitamin. Was it made in a lab, or did it come from a plant? Mm-hmm. You know, let's say you want to take vitamin C. Well, ascorbic acid, pure vitamin C powder, is actually a fantastic product.
I use that.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But one could go a step further, and let's say you could use goji berries or camu berries as your source of vitamin C. That, depending on where they've been grown and how and so on, they're roughly almost 50% vitamin C. You know, the most vitamin C rich fruits around, and with lots of other health benefits as well, particularly goji berries. So The more natural your source of all these vitamins and minerals is, usually the less you actually need, because it's more close to nature and you assimilate it into the body better. On a similar tack, for vitamin E, I tend to eat raw sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds to get my vitamin E that way. Vitamin A, I like to eat orange-coloured fruits and vegetables. Mango's got loads of vitamin A. Carrots, all the orange things tend to have vitamin A in, and so on. With vitamin B, I like to make my own vitamin B at home, and that's easily done with fermenting some vegetables for a few days. You can get a vitamin B factory, and even for vegetarians, it makes vitamin B12 as well. At the same time, in your little home vitamin factory of vitamin B, you're also got a probiotic factory in there, because fermented vegetables create probiotics. So, the old thing of European thing of sauerkraut, for instance, taking some cabbage, chopping it up really small, putting it in a glass container, filling it up with water, maybe flavouring it up. I mean, I like to cut up all the hard vegetables, some beetroot, some cabbage red and white, some celery, some carrots, some everything crunchy, really small, into the glass, cover it up with water, put a bit of salt in, maybe a little bit of chili and garlic if you feel like that sort of flavouring, whatever flavour you like, and then put sort of a saucer or something on top to make sure all the vegetables are actually under the water, because if they pop up above, they'll go mouldy, but if they're underneath, they'll just ferment. And you'd be surprised, after a day or two, it's already tasting quite nice. I like to speed the process up by getting the best probiotic capsules I can buy and opening a couple of them and sprinkling it in to start with. And so the ones I get, they're not cheap. They're £25, I think, for a month's supply, and they're 50 billion bacteria. Now, you go into most shops and there'll maybe be 2 billion bacteria or 10 billion bacteria, which might be great if you're really healthy, but if you're a bit ill, I'd like to suggest to people that 50 billion is the minimum. So if you've put that 50 billion into your ferment, then maybe by the next day you've tripled it. Maybe it's gone 10 times more. But you can take your 50 billion, turn it into trillions of bacteria, and you want trillions because, who are you really? Are you your cells, or are you bacteria? Actually, in terms of cells, I'm told that we humans, there are more bacteria in our bodies than there are our own cells. And it's worth bearing in mind that the bacteria, to a very large degree, do the digestion for us. We live in this symbiotic relationship with all the gut flora, all that bacteria and different types of fungus and so on that are all inside us. They're really helping us. But if we take antibiotics, which most of us have had in our lives, at that point, there becomes dysbiosis. The gut flora is upset by the antibiotic, and now things are out of balance. The antibiotic has wiped out some of it, and not all of it. And things are out of balance, and people then get often a candida fungal infection.
We're seeing, I know personally, seeing a lot of people with gut and stomach-related illnesses, allergies towards, celiacs. The amount of celiacs I know compared to 5-10 years ago is just ridiculous. Yeah. So are there practical things to either detox the body of whatever may be causing these autoimmune disorders in the first place, or to help people get healthy digestive systems back? Just some practical sort of information on that, because there are so many people now coming down with any number of allergens, or they're not able to process food we should be able to.
Yes. Okay, well, let me run through the core answer to that. The core answer to that is that over the last 100 years or so, with chemical farming, the soils have been depleted of everything. When I was young, I'm 58. When I was young, I remember watching the farmer with the ploughing the field, and thousands of birds would be following the plough, eating all the worms, and having a field day, a feast. Now you watch the same field, the same tractor. There are no birds. There are a couple of crows and a couple of seagulls, and that's it, because the soil's dead. all the microbes and the worms and the beetles and everything that was living there has been almost wiped out. Because if you put potassium on the soil, potash, you tend to kill everything. And so they've been putting the NPK fertilizer mix on, and so the soil's dead. And it's those microbes and bacteria and everything that creates the mineral content of the soil in the first place. So although you can grow perfectly good-looking vegetables on NPK, they don't smell of anything, they don't taste of anything. I was speaking to somebody who was explaining that when they were young, they were brought up in Yugoslavia, and they remember going back there recently, and suddenly they were reminded that they went to the market and they could smell the red peppers, they could smell the cucumbers, and it was powerful and potent and pungent. And we go into our local supermarket, and does Deathco vegetables and fruit smell of anything? Well, not much.
No. And of course, we've got now Codex Alimentarius on its way to here. I know it came in. The preparations came in. I think was it last March or last May, for us to start getting prepared for Codex Alimentarius.
Yes, well, luckily, the Codex ideas are unfortunately very, very poorly constructed, and one will hope that freedom to take whatever health methods one chooses should remain. It's outrageous that we should be
looking very positive, though, because every day more and more of our freedoms seem to be being taken away from us.
Well, it's clear, but at some point people, I believe, will say, well, enough is enough. Let me just get back to what everybody should do as a real basis. Yeah. So understanding that the food that is generally available is almost empty of minerals. And when I say empty, I mean empty. I've been researching the government figures around the world for the last 100 years of the amount of minerals that are in vegetables and fruits. And there are many cases where the mineral content has not dropped 5% or 10%, but it's dropped 99%. 99% of the copper or 99% of whatever mineral we're talking about is missing in certain cases, in carrots and in potatoes. And so that means not only is that one missing, but now the other one is hugely out of balance. And so you can look at somebody's appearance and work out from just looking at their face and their hair and their nails and so on exactly what minerals they're low on. And let me run through some of the basic minerals that really everybody is low on. Let's just start with magnesium. Now, magnesium is, if you like, at the top of the pyramid, I believe, because it makes all the others work properly. Now, what are the symptoms of low magnesium? Well, the symptoms of low magnesium include muscle cramps, those excruciating muscle cramps that people get if they've done too much exercise, or sometimes they get them at night. People who have twitches, spasms, people who are very, very anxious and don't sleep very well can sometimes, quite often, be a magnesium deficiency. Now, when I give talks, I usually ask the audience, how many of you get muscle cramps? And on average, 30% of people put their hand up. Now, those are the ones who get the twitches and the spasms and the muscle cramps, who, if they got a muscle cramp in their heart, would possibly be dead from a heart attack.
Right.
You don't realise that you can have a muscle cramp in the heart, just like you can in your leg, and that could kill you. Magnesium deficiency is rife because of processed foods. The moment you process flour, for example, and make it white, you take out the magnesium. Right. The moment you process sea salt to make it dry, you remove most of the magnesium. The magnesium has, because of processed foods, been removed in many, many cases, and it's missing in the soil. It's gone. It's not where it should be. So I would go so far as to say that, in England, conceivably, over 80% of the population are magnesium deficient, and probably 30% of them so much so that heart attacks, which is the biggest cause of death, heart attacks are the direct result. Now, how do I know this? Well, it's very interesting. Doctors save people's lives all the time, and where they seem to do it best is in the emergency rooms. Now, so what's the first thing they do in the emergency room when you arrive? Well, the first thing they often do, we all know this from TV, they inject saline. Right. So they put in salt. Now, in the room next door, there's a doctor telling you to eat less salt. When I became type 1 diabetic, my GP said to me, well, you do realise that you've been eating way too much salt, don't you? I said, no, I didn't realise that. I just eat what feels right. And he said, no, you've got to cut down. So I cut down, and then for the next 10 years, I got really excruciating muscle cramps. And then somebody said to me, you're not eating enough salt. I said, really? Yeah, because there's lots of magnesium in good salt. So I started eating more salt, being aware of magnesium, and the muscle cramps stopped. So in the emergency room, they know this. So if somebody comes in with a heart attack or a stroke, many, not all, many emergency doctors know that if they inject magnesium intravenously, that it'll cut the risk of dying by a factor of 4 times. Wow. Only a quarter of the people will now die. So, but then you go into the room next door. Has the GP heard about magnesium and hearts and strokes? Well, possibly not. They might not have taught him that at medical school. So there are an awful lot of very key facts, like learning about magnesium, that could cut the death rate in this country and everywhere else at an extraordinary level. Likewise, the iodine I mentioned earlier. If you correct your iodine levels after a few months, you can correct thyroid issues in many cases. It's a deficiency of iodine. That's most people's problems, because if they've been bathing in chlorinated water, cooking their vegetables in chlorinated water, and that chlorine has an effect chemically on the vegetables. No, it's not just chlorinating the water. You're not chlorinating your vegetables as well, and you're chlorinating you, and displacing the iodine. So very important to filter out the water. The cheapest way to filter out the water when you're having a bath or a shower is for something like, I don't know, 40 quid. You can buy a shower filter that goes on the shower, and if you run the water slowly enough, it's effective, a bit like one of those sort of Brita water filters. But you can fill your bath with it as well if you want to filter out the chlorine that way. It's slow, but at least it's an inexpensive way to do it. So the other vital ones are all the trace minerals that I mentioned earlier that are missing from the soil, the reason the birds aren't there and so on. Why the plants aren't growing well is all the minerals are missing. Now, if we were eating vegetables that were grown 100 and so years ago before the chemical farming, every single mineral would be in the vegetables in the perfect synergistic combination. Now, plant-based minerals are completely absorbable by the human body. Metallic minerals are not nearly so absorbable. So if you're getting your minerals from, say, salt, good sea salt, you don't absorb those as well, actually, as the plant-based ones that you get directly from the soil. And the reason is that the plant-based ones are all the decaying matter, all the plants and the animal life and so on that has decayed back into the soil. It's the constant recycling of minerals. The same minerals we're eating now are the ones that were always there, just recycled, except now they're missing. So what do you do to replace them in your diet? Well, some years ago, I started reading reports about something called fulvic minerals or fulvic acid. And I read that this stuff occurs in all soil everywhere on the planet, but to different degrees. Now, there are some places where it really occurs in abundance, and places on the planet where they don't quite know what happened, but maybe 40 million, 70 million years ago, perhaps a big, powerful river changed course, and then something geological happened which compressed the dried-up riverbed into this incredible mineral cocktail, if you like. In the same way in other areas, pressure might have turned rainforests into coal, or different pressure turned them into diamonds. In this case, it turns them into this mineral deposit. And they soak spring water. They soak it in spring water for about 2 years. It's just a simple cold water extraction. And out comes this concentrated fulvic minerals. Now, I started sending off for it from around the world because I'd been reading these incredible stories, people getting better from anything you like with it. And it would arrive in the post, and I'd try it, and I wouldn't feel any different. And another bottle would arrive, and I'd try it, and I wouldn't feel any different. Then one day, a bottle that was much smaller than the usual ones were sort of half a litre, this tiny little bottle, just 50 ml, turned up. And they told me there was 3 months' supply in this little bottle. And I took it that afternoon. Next morning, I woke up and I felt completely different. And I thought, wow, I've actually felt something. Because often I take these things, I just feel nothing. Mm. So I started giving it to everybody I know. And I got reactions right away, all across the board. I got somebody saying, my morning sickness stopped. I thought that was good. Morning sickness stopping, that's unusual. She must have been deficient in minerals. Then somebody said, I used to get cold fingers and toes up until a couple of days ago when it stopped, just after 2 days. Then a lot of people started ringing up saying, do you know, I'm getting a lot more energy. And I started giving it to athletes, and they reported things like, well, now I run X seconds faster, because they know, they measure this stuff. It's a big deal for them. And so I began, just like when I was cured of my arthritis 25 years back, I again became made aware that actually, what if lots of problems have a mineral deficiency at their core, lots of them. Then, as time went on, people rang up and said, oh, well, I've had fibromyalgia for 3 years and it's stopped. I don't want everybody with fibromyalgia to think that just this one product will stop their fibromyalgia, but in certain cases, it does. If you look at it like this, imagine we're a bit like a car engine. Just one washer has got to be out of place and the whole engine can break. Yeah. So if one mineral out of the dozens and dozens of them is missing, just one of them can solve the whole problem, like magnesium in the macro minerals. But the trace minerals, the little tiny ones that you need hardly any of, they're very interesting. Let me give you an example about how important minerals can be. I was on the phone to somebody from Israel the other day, and I said to them as a test question, how many people do you know with arthritis? And they stopped and thought for a while, and he said, nobody. Now, that's really unusual. Yeah. That's really unusual, not to know, and he's in his 40s or something, not to know anybody with arthritis. Now, where's the country with the highest arthritis in the world? Well, curiously, it's Jamaica. And there's a commonality between Jamaica and Israel. Jamaica has got the lowest rate of the mineral boron in the soil of any country in the world, as far as I'm aware. And Israel has the highest rate of boron in the soil. Now, the reason that the rate of boron is so low in Jamaica is that the prime agricultural land was initially given over to sugarcane plantations. Sugarcane strips the boron out of the soil if you grow it without crop rotation. Yeah. So when sugarcane started being replaced with beet products, the prime land got turned over to vegetable growing in boron-depleted soil. Mm. The people suddenly started getting the highest rate of arthritis in the world. So Israel, with the highest rate of boron in the soil, they have the lowest rate of arthritis in the world. Could there be a boron link, do you suppose? Yeah. I suppose there could. So the more you look at the minerals and the more you understand what they do and why they do it, you want them from a nice natural source wherever possible. Now, the magnesium that I use, there are loads of good magnesium sources. Why do people have Dead Sea salt baths? Why did people used to go and take the waters? Very often it was for the magnesium content, also for other minerals. Lourdes, for instance, people go and take the waters at Lourdes. The Lourdes water is incredibly high in silver, amongst other things. Mm-hmm. And there's a well in East Sussex, called Pear Tree Well, that's exceptionally high in silver. And Pear Tree Well has been getting people well for as long as anybody remembers. Why is it? Well, obviously the water's rather lovely, but apart from that, it's got this high silver content. Now, if you have a silver content of 10 parts per million in water, it's a natural antibiotic. Mm-hmm. The ancient Greeks knew this. The really ancient people knew about silver. Every now and then, they find an old galleon at the bottom of the sea and they bring it up. thousands of years it's been sitting there. And if they're really lucky, they'll find amphoras of wine that haven't broken. And when they open them, if they find, as they very often do, a little piece of silver in the wine, you can still drink it.
Wow. That's one for you, James. Remember
Yeah,
that?
there you go.
You and your wine.
So if you put silver in water, it will disinfect it. The ancient armies knew this. They knew that if they went traveling and they found a water source they couldn't trust, if they put enough silver in the water source for 24 hours, they'd be able to drink the water. The hospitals know this. They put silver on the inside of bandages in the burns units. They did an experiment to cut down MRSA in a hospital recently, where they put silver door handles on and put silver over all the air conditioning vents. The MRSA dropped tremendously because MRSA is often passed with people not washing their hands properly, so door handles are a big culprit for spreading it. You use silver and it's disinfectant. That's why the rich people in the old days used to eat off silver plates and drink out of silver goblets and use silver knives and forks. And it's why they were called blue bloods, because if you ingest enough particles of silver, your blood takes on a blue tinge. And that's why they were terribly healthy. The first time I ever used silver for somebody else, apart from myself, was I met this woman who had MRSA. She'd gone into the hospital for some minor thing and caught a nice flesh-eating disease. And 3 years later, despite all the antibiotics and everything, she I think, had got 5 children in her 30s. She couldn't look after the children anymore. And she said something like, I think it's going into my eyes. Anyway, I said to her, look, change your diet radically. You've got to go super, super healthy, lots of superfoods, super healthy. You've got to take a few supplements, but most important, you've got to start ingesting some silver. And her next-door neighbour had a silver generator that I'd given her. And so the next-door neighbour started giving her the silver. And I said to the woman, I'll come back in 6 days. Came back 6 days later. I said, well, how's the MRSA? And she said, 90% better. Wow. So that was about 3 years ago. Anyway, it just so happened I spoke to her on the phone just about 3 weeks ago. And I said, how's the MRSA? And she said, oh, we did that thing 3 years ago and it was completely fixed. Hasn't come back.
You mentioned, when I saw you talking in Brick Lane at the NHF conference, you're mentioning the benefits with teeth. I've had so many problems with my teeth over the years. Apparently it's hereditary. The teeth would kind of almost go soft. And the dentists now, they just want to rip teeth out all the time. My little boy, I took him to the dentist, and I've moved away from fluoride toothpaste. The dentist told me that she was disgusted in me, that the children need fluoride for their teeth, and she wanted to fill a baby tooth. So I was a bit confused of why she wanted to fill a baby tooth, because it's only going to fall out. Why would she need to fill that baby tooth? And she gave me some excuse that she felt that children need to know the relevance of looking after their teeth, and if she filled the baby tooth, it would probably frighten them, and they'd look forward to they'd more likely look after their teeth more. So with colloidal silver, I'm sure, unless I was dreaming it, you mentioned that it can be beneficial towards teeth and gums.
Well, yes. I have a very good friend who's a brilliant medical doctor, and he told me about this some 10 years ago, maybe now. And he said, well, you do realise that your teeth are regrowing all the time, don't you? Just like your nails and your bones, it's constantly growing. So if you've got a hole in a tooth, a cavity or something, well, there's a reason. And I'll just give you a few of the reasons. Magnesium deficiency, because calcium doesn't work properly unless you have the right magnesium. So if you think you've got a calcium problem because of the teeth and you take more calcium to correct it, if you haven't got magnesium to deal with the calcium, you're making it worse by taking more calcium. So a lot of people have got a lot of this mineral stuff wrong. They've got the wrong information about what does what. But silica is very, very important for teeth. Sulfur can be quite important. There are a number of things that are important for teeth, but the most important thing is to keep your mouth with the right pH, the acid-alkali level. You want to keep your mouth ideally alkaline. So you want to be But you're just taking a little bit of care. If for instance, you'd eaten a heavy meal that was rather acidic, lots of meats and breads and stuff like that, making you go acidic, you can correct it by having a large glass of water with a big squeeze of fresh lemon juice in it. Strangely, it's not everything that's acid makes you alkaline and vice versa, but if you have a big glass of freshly squeezed lemon juice with lots of water, you ingest that acid and your body responds by going alkaline. And your teeth love that environment. Your whole body needs to be alkaline to be healthy. To give you an example, 95% of newly diagnosed cancer patients are running an acid body. So acidity and illness are directly linked. And the reason being that pH is relevant to voltage, and we are electrical beings. There's a direct relationship. Anyway, back to teeth.
Yep.
So, colloidal silver, you get a little colloidal silver generator. You make it at home, and now you've got a cavity. Now, if you had a cavity in your finger, let's say a big cut in your finger, you know exactly what to do. You'd keep it sterile, you'd keep it clean, you'd leave it alone, and it'll just grow back. You can do the same with your tooth. If your tooth would grow back the cavity, the reason you've got the cavity is, let's say you're low on magnesium, whatever it is, all you got to do is clean up your mouth. Make your mouth a sterile environment. Don't abuse it by having hot cups of tea or something. And just, if you treated it like you did the cut on your finger, keep it sterile, look after it, don't annoy it, your cavity will just grow back.
Wow, incredible. We've only got 5 minutes left, Clive. I wanted to talk about the machine that you have, the Tesla Pro. Could you tell us a little bit about this?
Yes. This is a frequency device. It's a radio frequency device invented by Nikola Tesla in 1895. They used to be in every hospital in the world, loads of manufacturers, up until about the 1950s when pharmaceutical procedures and so on took over, and all these machines were removed. And but they still carried on, and but the laws are such now that nobody's allowed to say that these machines were curing all sorts of diseases back then, that they were used in place of drugs for many reasons. They were very powerful machines, and if anybody wanted to read about them, there's lots of information on the net about them, but if they want a place to start, if they go onto our website, which is ancientpurity.com, they will see a reference to that machine, and also there's an artificial sun, which is very, very, very interesting. What you can do with sunlight is extraordinary.
Yeah, I was going to get to that because we're down here in Devon. It's soon going to be the holiday season. The shops are going to be ram-packed with all the, the...
Grockles. The grockles is what we call them.
Is it? Okay. Yeah. With all the sun protection factors, and the sun's dangerous. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, I thought you were talking about holiday makers.
No.
Well, really people do have a rather a lot to learn. And what I do is I give talks like I'm doing now to get people in the mood for what it is they could learn. Because once you realise that, just a couple of simple facts. Let me tell you that 3 grams of fish oil a day, and this is all proven work, reduce your risk of cardiac issues or cancer issues by 50 to 80%. Just 3 grams of fish oil a day will reduce your risk of heart and cancer problems by 50 to 80%. If you are in the group that has the highest vitamin D levels as opposed to the lowest vitamin D levels, and these are huge, big studies, hundreds of thousands of people, you have 90% less risk of dying of cancer than the ones with the lowest vitamin D. So I give day seminars where I explain the whole thing. Everything that I've learned over all the years, I narrow it down and say, well, look, do you realize that if you ate 3 portions of cooked tomato a week, that would reduce your risk of colon cancer by 50%? If you took some vitamin B6, which you can make at home in the kitchen, that will reduce your risk of lung cancer if you combine it with the right amino acid by 2/3. So all you've got to do is realize that if you adjust your diet to some degree, be a bit sensible, do a bit of detoxing, the chances are that you can live 10, 20, possibly healthier years than you could previously. So one weekend, one can learn such a lot about one's own health. You know, we've been disempowered.
The entire sort of common knowledge of health is sort of the reverse of what we should be doing. I mean,
really, yeah.
Our foods are all completely devoid of anything healthy. We need lots of sun for the vitamin D to be healthy.
But we're told to stay away from it.
But we're told to put on suntan. I mean, you look at suntan, the sun block cream, and it's, you know, all these base titanium, all these metals that, would you ingest that? Because when you're rubbing that into your skin, it'd be as, you know, as drinking it. It's sort of like everything is flipped on its head, and getting people to understand. I mean, I have people that I would say are open-minded, and they'll be talking to me, and I'll be like, well, am I right? Is it less than 5% of skin cancers are caused from sun?
Well, the sun. What causes skin cancers and why the sun has been blamed is that burning will cause them. I know somebody who was splashed with chip fat, and they got skin cancer. It's burning, not, you know, sunshine. You need. Everybody needs sun. We're meant to be naked apes walking in the forest, getting sun all day long, aren't we?
Yeah. So you have, you know, you talk to people about this, and they're receptive. And then what's the thing that they do? Of course, they go home, they watch TV. The TV tells them to put on lots of sun block lotion, and they go and do it. And it's very difficult to get through to people that the entire sort of matrix that we're looking in isn't beneficial. I mean, you only have to look at Western civilization. We've got really, really poor health. I mean, in the States, where they're the most medicated, you've got the most unhealthy people. Yeah. So it's sort of getting through to that thing is that, right, I know common sort of belief is this way, but you're really not healthy doing it this way, and you have to rethink it and take your health into your own hands. I mean, that's what I've done the last couple of years.
We've only got like a couple of minutes, but Clive, over in America, we're seeing raw food stores being raided for selling, health food stores being raided for selling the raw milk. The FDA are going into natural health practitioners, you know, guns are blazing, trying to close them down. I saw a documentary about a year ago now with Dr. Brzezinski, who was curing brain cancer. And he lost his license over there. The FDA made sure it was removed. There was police and judges.
But the good news is he's got it back and got funding. Great. And the thing is that all these things you're saying are all positive from the point of view that people are waking up and people are saying, no, we're not going to go along with this. It's a silly idea. We're not going along with it. And what the supplement manufacturers need to do in England is to say, I know that Codex wants to limit the amount that we can give, but we're not having it. We're in the industry of health, and we're not going to be dictated to by Europe or anybody else. The people want it, and we, the manufacturers, no, we're not going to stop just because you tell us that we're going to go to prison. I mean, the water manufacturers have been told that if they make a claim that water is hydrating, there's a 2-year prison sentence. So if I was bottling water and I dared to put that water might hydrate you, I risk 2 years in prison. I mean, this is like Nazi stuff, and silly. And there's nobody who would agree that this is sensible. So it's clear that we need to stop giving away our health freedom and start demanding it back.
Exactly.
And luckily, the solutions are simple, and the focus is always to keep looking at the solutions, because just a simple glass of water, is it the pill that the doctor gives you that makes you better, or is it the glass of water? I think in some cases it's the glass of water.
We had Peter Reynolds on from the Legalised Cannabis Clear the other day, and we were looking at the amount of deaths caused by prescribed medications, and then with regards to the deaths of cannabis users, and there were no deaths. recorded from use of cannabis, but the deaths with from regards to prescribed medication were what were the figures?
350,000 roughly a year in the States.
Yeah. But we're seeing that more and more, and we're being, the health issues just pushed to one side, and the doctors are so quick and easy to prescribe.
With GPs in general, food allergens, they're very reluctant to sort of say, well, have you looked at food allergens? Which everybody's got them these days because our immune systems are so...
But it's not the doctor's fault. They weren't taught it at medical school.
Well, no, they basically given about 1 or 2 hours out of their course on like homeopathic medicine, and there's all these different things, and they're just not taught it.
So I mean, the thing is that if you want health, and people go to their doctor seeking health, they want restoration of their health. But unfortunately, a doctor isn't taught about health. It's not a subject they study. They study disease and drugs and so on. They don't study health. So people need to wake up and realize that if they go to the doctor has 3 choices. They can get out their scalpels, they can get out their radiation, or they can get out their drugs. But they can't get out their Brussels sprouts and broccoli. They can't get out the other stuff because they haven't been taught it. Iodine... 100 years ago, iodine was almost the most commonly prescribed cure-all that there was. Now, and they used to give maybe big doses. Now the doctors recommend micrograms. And they're being taught differently to how they used to be taught.
By the pharmaceuticals.
It's about money, follow the money. Yeah. But I'm about self-empowerment and making people understand that actually it's much simpler than you might have thought. If you take the doctor language out of it and stop calling things myocardial infarctions and call them heart attacks, so we can all understand what's being talked about, it's not so hard to understand. If you want to reduce a heart attack by 50%, we'll take 3 grams of fish oil a day. If you want to go further, do a couple of other things. Take some vitamin D. Yeah.
We're out of time with regards to this because we're pre-recording it for Monday. I would love to have you on again if you would, because I could listen and learn off of you for days.
It's incredible. I'm sort of an advocate on health freedom now because I started taking it because my mum was diagnosed with cancer, and we did all the doctor's things for years, and it keep coming back. And then we just decided to, take it into our own account. Yeah. And the health benefits from very, very simple life changes is incredible. Yeah.
If we can have you on, amazing. If we could have you back on again, and maybe next month or something.
I'd love to come back on because health can be really cheap and available and pretty easy, really. And for people who want to know more about the talks that I'm giving. If they go onto the website amazinghealthtalks.com.
Okay, and there's ancientpurity.com as well. Yeah,
that's the site that has information about minerals and vitamins, or the primary ones, just a few. Yeah. It's not a complicated site. I'm trying to keep it down to like the top 10 of stuff to do. Keep it nice and simple, at least. And Amazing Health Talks, they can come come for a day and I'll teach them everything I know.
Oh, that would be great. And maybe next month we'll have you on and go into a bit further.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for your time, Clive.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.
That was a absolutely fascinating interview there. What do you think?
I'm going to be heading over to the Liberty Tactics website over on YouTube and re-listening to this episode.
Yes, you do need to listen to this
times because it's too much. I mean,
but I think we should maybe get him on maybe once a month.
That would be good.
For 15 minutes, Clive's health tips.
Yeah.
I might put that question to him.
Well, a bit like a proposal.
Well, yeah.
Like if you're gonna propose to someone, it should be someone like Clive that can keep you healthy.
Exactly. Exactly. That's
not just feed you with cakes, but with health.
With health, that'd be fantastic.
Health cakes.
Yeah. So next week we're going to pre-record this pre-record next week. So apparently the building work's going on for 2 weeks. We have got a really huge guest in the name of Anthony J Hilder. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's not heard of Anthony J Hilder, just Google his name. He's been on Alex Jones.
They probably know of him. He's on satellite TV quite a lot.
Yes.
Channel 201.
I've got to be careful.
203.
Yeah, 201, I think.
I think it is.
Yeah.
201 and 203 because they skip
and hopefully,
out,
Edge will get him on for an interview as well. But first of all, he's debuting on the Lou Collins Show. So that's next Monday. Please just Google him. Just have a look. He's a very, very interesting guy. All about our liberties and our liberties that have been taken away, especially what's going on in America. I believe there's a new YouTube video out, which has been sent to me, but I haven't seen yet, and I will look.
And people can always get over to your Facebook page.
Yeah, Lou Collins Radio Show.
And
we've actually the UK column have put a really great
big advertisement for us.
Big advent. So awesome. Cheers, Brian and Mike, for that.
But but try and get some. If you have any questions,
any questions for Anthony J Hilder,
send them over.
Yeah, send them on. Post them on the page, or you can email them to loucollinsradioshow@gmail.com. So thanks for having us. We'll be recorded show next Monday, 11 o'clock, same time. If not, the YouTube video will be out shortly. Thank you for having us. Bye.
Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why.
It's Lou Collins. Here we are in an underground bunker somewhere undisclosed in Brixham.
Yeah, as sound out as they're having renovations, so we've decided to retreat to the back layer.
Yeah, and we're down here recording underground
under 3,000 miles of concrete.
Yeah. We're going to I want to jump straight in and play this clip quickly for you, and I'm sure it's going to delight many, many listeners, especially those in the US. So for everybody in the US, here's your president.
To Her Majesty the Queen, on her Diamond Jubilee, to our dear friends David and Samantha, and to the great purpose and design of our alliance. May we remain, now and always, its faithful servants. Cheers, everyone.
Well, thank Willow to the brain.
Yes, thanks for that, James.
And you'll need supplements to keep your brain in one piece from the awesomeness.
This is true. So, yeah, get your piece of papers, loads of notes to be taken. Right, I'm going to get Clive De Carle on the phone now from Ancient Purity. Good morning, Clive.
Good morning. How are you, Lou?
We're very well. I've got James here with me.
Hey, Clive. How's it going?
Good, thanks.
Really, I just want to start by asking a bit about your background and how you got into the natural health and what inspired you to start Ancient Purity.
Well, when I was at school, I did seriously consider becoming a doctor, but it seemed not my thing after I talked to a few doctors. And in my early 20s, I studied various types of hands-off healing. But although people said they could feel the results, I never felt confident in myself to go and do it. So I went into business And I worked for about 15 years in the field of ophthalmic optics, and I used to sort of go into various surgeons and neurosurgeons and show them new microscope techniques and stuff like that. And contact lenses I was also interested in. And then...
Thank you for your allegiance, Mr. Obama man. My drains need cleaning, so once you're done fluffing the Queen, you can get down to Brixham and clean the guttering out, because it's full of leaves.
It is, but he does. He is apparently, the Queen is his handler.
Really?
He is the Queen's official puppet.
Right.
Apparently, but people in America must be absolutely delighted to know that Mr. Obama is swearing allegiance to the Queen, and he's already very grateful.
He's already said that they don't need Congress anymore, and they'll just go to war on the whim of the UN. So he's already committed treason and sedition. So I mean, you know, what's the? It's just each week. Americans keep taking it though, so I guess they're stepping up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And looking at that video, we saw it here in the studio on video, the way that they've done the White House up, it's got blokes with trumpets and stuff. It looks, and there was a story last year about Michelle Obama. She's got something like 100 personal sort of PAs and assistants that follow around. So it is basically like a little mini royalty.
Yeah, of course it is.
And they haven't even got, I mean, America was sort of set up with it.
Invading it, little countries for no reason. All in the name
They just
of...
need a fox hunt now, don't they? Well, eventually they won't have fox hunts, they'll just have people hunts. Where
of course.
They'll be like the Running Man.
Anybody who's doing any healthy and anyone who wants to live healthily, they'll
be running naked through a forest with a load of rich toffs and corporate slime balls on horse, shooting at them.
Listen, the show today, we're going to be talking natural health. He is fascinating. I saw him talking at the Natural Health Federation talk in Brick Lane a couple of weeks ago. And it was quite bizarre, actually, because I kept saying, I've got to ask Ian Crane, that is, who, if I can get this guy on the show. He's so interesting. And then I was sitting down in Plymouth last week with Brian Garish at the UK column, and my phone rang, and there was a voice over the phone and said, "Hi, I've been told I need to come on your show." And it was Clive.
Wow.
So I don't know who pointed him in my direction, but whoever you are, thank you. We're going to get him on now over Skype, and he's going to be discussing natural health, what's going into our water. His website is ancientpurity.com.
Get a pen and paper ready.
Yeah,
lots of information. This is information health. Oh.
Suddenly, I got incredibly ill from being healthy. I ended up in hospital, and what had happened was, over a remarkably short period of time, I got arthritis to such a degree that one morning my wife brought me a mug of tea and I couldn't lift it. And I really realized I really was in trouble. Right. And 3 weeks in hospital, they figured out that among the other things that were wrong with me, I'd become type 1 diabetic. And when they put me on insulin, then suddenly I was able to function again, even though the arthritis they couldn't do anything about. And they sort of really were saying I'd probably have to live with it. But I met, at that point, Patrick Holford. And he said to me, "Well, you're low on minerals and vitamins and you haven't been eating well enough." And sure enough, he was right. And some months later, the arthritis just disappeared. I looked like I was 90 at one point, lumpy and bumpy and horrible. Disappeared completely. And I realized, well, okay, if one can do that, completely get better, what other problems can one get over? And very shortly after that, my father's best friend explained to me that his cancer had returned for the second time, and he'd